Great Scott! Hello everyone, and welcome to NativeScript-Vue 2.0, back to the Vueture. If you're here to learn more about using Vue to create truly native mobile apps for iOS and Android, then you are definitely in the right place at the right time. If you're not, well, you're still in the right place, and we're happy to have you along for the ride today. So let's get to it. My name is Rob Lauer, or rather Doc Lauer today, and I manage the Progress Mobility Developer Relations team. I will be your MC today, and you can connect with me on Twitter at Rob Lauer if you so choose. More importantly, on stage today, we have Jen Looper, our protagonist, aka Martina McFly, sorry Jen, aka the founder of Vue Vixens, which happens to fit perfectly in with Michael J. Fox, because you see female foxes are also known as vixens. Oh, the more you know. Find Jen on Twitter at Jen Looper. We also have TJ Van Tol, aka TJ Tannen, aka the master of the flux capacitor. TJ is on Twitter at TJ Van Tol, so it's a great crew today. You're all in for a big treat. Now, while these cast members are the heart and soul of today's webinar, none of this would be possible without the contributions from the NativeScript-Vue community. So I'd like to hand out some Best Supporting Actor awards to the following individuals. First being Igor Rangelovic, Tiago Alves, Kamen Bundev, Manuel Salises, Pascal Martineau, Vasil Trifonov, Rahul Kadyan, and Ludovic Bodever. Sorry if I murdered any of your names there. Now, Back to the Vueture might not be playing at your local cinema, but it wouldn't be complete unless it were available for watching later on your favorite streaming service. Now, while I can't say we will be on Netflix anytime soon, we will have a full recording of this webinar up on YouTube in the coming days. So if you have any audio or video problems, or if we can't quite get up to 88 miles per hour in our DeLorean, rest assured you can catch the whole event on YouTube. Now, to stay up to date on NativeScript as a whole, I highly recommend you take a moment to subscribe to NativeScript News. We send out some really great info in this email newsletter, usually only about once a month or so. Sign up at nativescript.org/news. And if you're looking for live help with NativeScript, look no further than Slack. We have well over 8,000 folks ready to lend you a hand. Sign up at tinyurl.com/nativescript/slack. And I know we often get a lot of people new to NativeScript at these webinars, or some people who are just curious. A special hello and welcome to all of you. I'm not normally this crazy looking. For your reference, NativeScript is a free and open source framework used to create truly native mobile apps for both iOS and Android from a single codebase. Now, you use your web skills like JavaScript, CSS, and a friendly markup language to create these apps. It's not Cordova or PhoneGap though, it's way more like React Native, but for Angular or Vue instead of React as the underlying framework. And yes, in case it isn't overly obvious by now, NativeScript ships with full support for Angular out of the box, and Vue via the integration we're going to talk about today. Now, you should know that NativeScript shines in some key areas when it comes to native mobile app development. Performance. NativeScript apps are truly native. When you add a button element to your app, the NativeScript framework automatically transforms that into a native UI button on iOS and an Android widget button on Android, all without you having to write a single line of Swift, Objective-C, Java, or Kotlin. Web skills. Apps written with NativeScript use JavaScript, TypeScript, Angular, or Vue. Apps are styled with CSS. Yes, the same CSS you've been using for years. And the markup is a friendly HTML-like syntax. Unlimited API access. NativeScript gives you access to the entire library of both iOS and Android device APIs without relying on plugins. You also have the ability to share code between existing web apps and your mobile NativeScript apps. Now, this is an evolving story for Vue, and our Angular integration is already quite popular. Now, NativeScript is built and supported by Progress, a publicly traded company based in Boston with an extensive history of providing tools and services for application developers of all types. And maybe this means something to you, maybe not, but if you're the type of developer who likes the reassurance of known companies using a new tool before you try it out, take a look at some of these well-known companies who are users of NativeScript. And when you look at the overall adoption of NativeScript, you'll see that we hit 2.8 million total downloads. And to date, we've more than eclipsed our 2017 download numbers already, with a few months left in the year. Now, if you are a user of NativeScript and you've been paying close attention, you may have seen a new tab appear on the NativeScript marketplace. A little while back, we released an extensive set of NativeScript code samples. So everything from basic geolocation examples, to a style login form, to gorgeous list views and filterable news readers. There's a lot to love in these code samples. Now, each code sample is fully compatible with the NativeScript Playground. This means you just need a web browser and your phone to view the app. All the code is free and open source and works equally well on both iOS and Android. And many of the samples also contain versions supporting Angular, Vue, and plain JavaScript. So check them out today at market.nativescript.org. And if you haven't already, take a look at the NativeScript Playground as a place to get started on your native mobile development journey. The Playground is completely web-based, so there are no dependencies or local installations you have to do to get up and running. Now, if you're here, I probably don't need to sell you on Vue, but if I do, Vue is a modern and lightweight JavaScript framework that is booming in popularity. Vue is also free and open source. It's MIT licensed. Vue is built to be incrementally adoptable. What that means is you can use as much or as little of what Vue provides. In the Vue world, components are just reusable Vue instances, so it's easy to create reusable or shareable components. Now, Vue.js is lightweight, weighing in at a whopping 20K on the web, I believe. There's also a vast ecosystem of supporting libraries and utilities. Now, some AngularJS developers, remember this is Angular pre-version 2, we're seeing some of them migrating to Vue as an alternative to Angular due to the similarities between the two frameworks. And last but not least, all of us jQuery holdouts are seeing Vue as an easy bridge to modern JavaScript development versus, say, a React or an Angular. And just looking at some Google Trends, you can see how Vue matches up with Angular and React in terms of overall popularity. Now, as a little history lesson, when Vue dropped its dependency on the browser DOM with version 2.0, it made Vue a perfect fit for developing native apps with NativeScript. And subsequently, you can trace NativeScript-Vue's birth date back to this tweet in April of 2017. This is when our good friend Igor first started wondering whether this crazy idea of merging NativeScript and Vue would even be possible. Well, sure enough, it's more than possible. It became a reality at Vue Amsterdam when we announced NativeScript-Vue 1.0 back in February. And today we're at 2.0, which once again Jen Lupro is on stage at Vue.js London for the big announcement. So NativeScript-Vue was born out of this marriage. NativeScript-Vue is a community-driven initiative supported by Progress, but really a product of our growing community. And with NativeScript-Vue, you have this new ability to create truly native mobile apps for both iOS and Android from a single codebase. Again, much like React Native has benefited the React community, NativeScript is here for the Vue community. And now, without spoiling Jen's segment, NativeScript-Vue 2.0 comes loaded with new features. A new template, integration with NativeScript Sidekick, support for NativeScript 4 frame navigation, functional components, Vue dev tools, new docs, and hot module reload. That deserves another great Scott! Sorry, that's horrible. It should be no surprise that Vue developers represent the fastest growing segment of all NativeScript developers. And Jen's going to fill you in on all the details, of course. So it's a very exciting time for us here at Progress. NativeScript-Vue is turning 2.0, and the NativeScript framework itself is turning 5.0 at the end of the month. I'm not going to spoil any surprises here, but TJ is here to give us the lowdown on 5.0 in a little while. All right, before I hand the stage over to Jen, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a conference we are putting on in Boston at the end of October. JS Mobile Conf is a 2-day, 2-track conference focused on JavaScript, mobility, and cutting-edge technologies. We have speakers from Microsoft, Google, Adobe, some of us from Progress, and loads of talks on everything from blockchain to machine learning to AI to AR and VR, and more, including NativeScript, check it out at jsmobileconf.com. And as an added bonus, just for being part of this webinar, use the discount code VUEWEBINAR to get 30% off your JS Mobile Conf tickets. So take a look at jsmobileconf.com for a full list of speakers and sessions. Jen, TJ, and I will all be there. And with that, I'd like to invite Jen on the stage here to tell us everything she knows about NativeScript-Vue 2.0. Jen, take it away.
Thanks very much, Rob. Hi everyone, my name is Jen Looper. I'm a senior developer advocate here at Progress. I'm a true Vue lever. I have a great love for Vue.js and NativeScript. You can always find me on Twitter. I'm at Jen Looper, and I hope you appreciate the effort to which I've gone to ransack my children's closet and my old vintage clothes to put on this amazing Marty McFly outfit. So today we're going to talk about several new things that have come with NativeScript-Vue 2.0. So recently at the Vue London conference, we had the great pleasure of announcing NativeScript-Vue 2.0 on stage. And I was so happy to have been joined by the core contributor of NativeScript-Vue, who is Igor Randelovich, and he appeared on stage, and we were able to launch this new and awesome version of this framework. So today we're going to talk a little about some interesting things that you can do today with NativeScript-Vue. With the new 2.0 release, there's a lot of good stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with some tips on how to upgrade from any prior NativeScript-Vue versions that you might have on your machine. Then we're going to go ahead and scaffold an app using the official Vue CLI template, which is getting increasingly sophisticated and it's really, really fun to use. Then I'm going to open up Sidekick and show the new Vue integrations. So if you have an app, you can use it within Sidekick. Then I want to show you this new integration that we have for Vue DevTools. It's really promising. And then we're going to look at some of the new NativeScript UI components that are now Vue compatible. And then I'm going to show you a working app that I've been working on gradually. I decided it would be really appropriate to use for this webinar, since it's a tarot reading app and it's all about going to the future. So we're going to walk through the creation of manual routes. And this is basically because someone on Twitter requested that I go over this in this webinar. So here it is. And then I want to show you what's coming soon in the NativeScript Playground in terms of tutorials for Vue.js. So it's possible that you've been working with NativeScript-Vue apps for a while and you have an old template that you want to upgrade. Well, have no fear, just go to NativeScript-Vue.org and take a look at the upgrade guide. It's true that the folder structure for NativeScript-Vue 2.0 is a lot different, but all you really need to do is install a new scaffolded version of an app and then convert your old app into the new app by shuffling around some of the folders. So there's a really good guide on the docs, and I just want to encourage you to take a look at that and walk through the steps. There's also some tips on how to try HMR with this template, and it actually is kind of exciting to work with. When you're ready to scaffold for yourself a new NativeScript-Vue 2 app, go ahead and head over to nativescriptvue.org and take a look at the quick start. Make sure that you have the Vue CLI installed, and go ahead and type Vue init NativeScript-Vue with the new Vue CLI template. Give your app a name and walk through the presets that are presented to you. Give it a project version, author, and then you can select a preset, and there are more coming soon. I'm going to select a side drawer. I also want Vuex and the Vue DevTools, and I'm going to use the light color scheme. Then all you need to do is cd into your app and npm install. So this might take a few minutes, and you can go out for a cup of coffee. Once everything is nice and neatly installed, you can go ahead and run tns run iOS or Android -- bundle, and that kicks off the Webpack build so that you can go ahead and run your app on an emulator. At this point, you can go ahead and open up your project in your favorite IDE, such as Visual Studio Code, and take a look at the way the files have been scaffolded for you. So here, we always start in our package.json file, and there's quite a lot here that's been pre-scaffolded for you based on your presets. Of course, we have NativeScript-Vue 2.0 right there, and then you can take a look at all of the Webpack dependencies that we have in our dev dependencies block. We also have DevTools scaffolded because we requested that. And moving into main.js, we can take a look at the way the new Vue instance is rendered. It's rendered into the frame. This is a new requirement of a NativeScript-Vue 2.0 app. Also notice that we register the side drawer element. That is also based on one of our presets. And then we can open up our components folder and take a look at app view. This is basically our home screen. So there's already quite a lot scaffolded here for us because we requested that the side drawer be included. This is really convenient because, why write it yourself when you can have something nice scaffolded out for you. And since we're running our app, you can see how making a small change live syncs pretty quickly, and you can see how the development experience is pretty clean. HMR will make improvements on this workflow, and we'll cover that later on in the webinar. The next thing I want to do is show you how you can use Sidekick, which is an Electron app that you can use for your NativeScript development, and it will make your life a little bit easier when using it with NativeScript-Vue. So here I'm just going to open an app that I've already been working on. It's my Tarot app. I'm going to go ahead and use it here in Sidekick. Now my Android emulator is already running, so I just ensure that I have Webpack set so that I can use Webpack to build to the emulator. And here you can see my emulator opens and my app appears. Use Sidekick to make your app development a little bit more organized and easier to work with as a team. Now it's time to talk about our new integration with Vue DevTools. Vue DevTools are some of the greatest tooling that are available for web developers, and now mobile developers can take advantage of them as well. So what you need to do is you need to, again, go to NativeScript-Vue.org and take a look at the documentation. There are several steps you need to do to get Vue DevTools up and running, and I recommend actually just installing them globally so that you can go into your CLI and leverage them from there. So remember that app that I scaffolded earlier? Well, it's actually still running in the iOS emulator. So at this point, all I have to do is type Vue-DevTools, which is installed globally, and the Vue DevTools will open. They'll find a connection, and you can start digging in to your app code. So we see here you have the root and the frame, and you can start inspecting the elements of your mobile app. So you can start digging in. And this is actually really, really exciting to watch. Stay tuned for these other tabs to come online, especially the area where you can inspect your Vue state with the Vuex DevTools. So just watch, that's coming soon. Now I want to skip back to my tarot reading app to talk about how to use Rad List View, which is one of our very nice premium UI components that you can use now with NativeScript-Vue. So this is the kind of list view where you can drag and swipe and pull to refresh. So to get this working, all you have to do is make sure in your package JSON that you're including the NativeScript UI list view at that particular version. Make sure it's the most recent. And then you import the rad list view from NativeScript UI list view /view, and then Vue use the rad list view. So I'm going to use it to list all of the meanings of the cards that are in my small local database, which is basically just a JSON file. So the markup of your rad list view resides in this particular component, and it looks like this. So it's a rad list view with certain elements that you can do with it. So you can pull to refresh, reorder items, things will happen when you tap on various rows, and when you reorder elements. And the markup is very simple. It's just, for me, it's just the item's emoji and its name, and then the meaning of the card, both reversed and upright. So that's just composed within the stack layout in the V template. So all you have to do to import data into your rad list is import your JSON file, which is or any database that you're using. For me, it's just a very simple JSON file. I go ahead and import that, and then in my created lifecycle hook, I call the getAllCards method. And I just create an array of all cards, and I push elements into it so that they can be displayed within the rad list view. So here we go. We're going to push the data into that array, and then we're going to just display everything nice and neat in the rad list. So if you're interested in using other kinds of our NativeScript UI for Vue, you can go ahead and look on the docs. That's on the Progress NativeScript UI docs. And on Telerik.com, you can see how we use side drawer, calendar, chart, data form, and autocomplete in the gauge. And it's really cool to watch these evolve. And now, by popular demand, I would like to discuss how to go ahead and set up routing using manual routes in your NativeScript-Vue app Now, everyone knows it would be super great if we could just throw in the Vue router and just off to the races. That's not going to happen. We're going back and forth a little bit with the Vue core team on how we could eventually make this happen if possible. But for now, your best bet is to use manual routes. And here's how to do that. Now, my Terramoji app has 3 routes, and I need to make those available throughout the app. So I go ahead and import routes from a file that I keep in the router folder. I call that just index.js in the router folder, and I list out the routes that I need to have available. So here are the 3, and then I just save them in a constant and export it. Then I move over to main.js, and I make the routes available by assigning them to the prototype. So I'm going to make them available whenever I use the $routes. Now, all the manual navigation that occurs in this app actually happens in this child component called navigation.vue. So that is a child component that is kind of nested in the rad side drawer, and it's available throughout. So all the action here is in navigation.vue, and up at the top on those drawer items, I've created a method called changeRoute. So when I tap and change route and send in the name of the route that I want to change over to, I use this standard method changeRoute, and then I use this built-in method of manual routing, this $navigate_to. I send it to the route that I want, and I can send along some parameters as well. Here I want to clear history because I don't want the action bar to show a back button as I'm navigating back and forth. And here you can see how I can merrily use the side drawer to switch around to my full reading, which is actually not a screen I've built yet, and then back to a daily card. Yikes, that is a terrible card. I think I prefer the one before. Oh well, time to clear history again. Okay. The last thing I want to show you today is something really cool that's coming soon into the NativeScript playground. So this is a sneak peek of some tutorials that you'll soon be able to access within the Vue area of the playground. So you've probably noticed that in the Angular area, you have some really nice tutorials. Well, here in Vue, we've worked actually with several people, including the cohort of the NativeScript ambassadors this summer, to build out a tutorial that's going to be ready for you very soon in the playground. And you'll end up with a very pretty weather app that'll be running right on your phone. It's actually a kind of a reboot of the clean weather app that I built in the NativeScript Snack Labs. So this is something to look forward to. We're hoping to get more and more learning resources and tutorials your way so that you can learn alongside everyone else. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for attending this segment of this webinar, and it's my pleasure, as always, to work with NativeScript-Vue, which is really a community effort, and of course, we always want to thank Igor Rangelovich for his incredible work making this come to life. So I'm going to pass the mic over to TJ, and thank you very much.
Perfect, thanks so much. I'm TJ, and I'm a developer advocate on the NativeScript team. And today I want to give you a quick preview or tease or early look at what we have coming in NativeScript 5.0. Just as a quick review of what's been going on in NativeScript lately, this June we shipped NativeScript 4.1, which included some major performance improvements for Android, new CSS gradient support, the ability to work on multiple iOS simulators simultaneously, as well as some copy and paste friendly code samples, which you can actually find today if you head to market.nativescript.org and check out the new samples tab. Then this August, we shipped NativeScript 4.2, which included some performance and stability improvements for LiveSync, new support for debugging NativeScript apps that use Webpack, a new overhauled documentation site, which you can find at docs.nativescript.org, as well as new support for working with .vue files in NativeScript Playground, which we're going to actually look at here in another minute. But since shipping 4.2, we've been hard at work on the next major version of NativeScript, NativeScript 5.0. There are a lot of new features in this version of NativeScript, but we only have so much time today, so I'm going to take you on a tour of the high notes or some of the most important things that we are shipping with this release. And those are hot module replacement, a new preview app development workflow that we have, a new interactive way to create NativeScript apps, and better support for working with safe areas on iOS. As you can tell from the bolding, the two most important features, at least in my opinion, are our new support for hot module replacement and our new app preview workflow. And these are features that I think are best seen in action. So let's switch over and look at a demo of how these work. What you're seeing here is my NativeScript development environment. And in honor of NativeScript 5, I've created this very useful app you see here that lists all movie series that have exactly 5 installments. Because believe it or not, this being the internet, there is a Wikipedia page for this that someone somewhere maintains. And I thought creating an app for this that parses and grabs this data and displays it in an app was a very valuable use of my work time. I have this app, but I want to make some changes to it. Now, if you're used to NativeScript app development, you're used to running apps with the tns run command. And that's actually exactly what I did to run this app on this iOS simulator. And you might also know that by default, tns run automatically starts a process called LiveSync, which watches for any changes you make to your app. So suppose I need to make some changes to this app. Maybe I want to just play around with the transitions that's being used between these two pages. The way LiveSync works is if I go in, make this change, and save my file, my CLI is going to detect that change, refresh the app, and I immediately see the change live. This makes for a pretty fast development cycle, especially if you compare NativeScript app development to how you would normally develop iOS and Android applications. But for NativeScript 5, we thought we could do better. Now, if I head back to my terminal and go ahead and kill the existing tns run command, this time I'll run this command again, but pass in a --HMR flag, which stands for hot module replacement. When the app gets up and running, let's say I want to tinker with my app a little bit more. Maybe I want to play with the duration that I'm using for this flip animation. When I go ahead and save this file right now, note how my app now, because I use the --HMR flag, does not refresh. That's because under the hood, the NativeScript CLI is now using Webpack to automatically swap in new code as the app is running. And if I tap one of these items, you'll see that the new duration is in place. And by the way, looking great too. What this means is you have a far faster development workflow. So I could go in and just try playing with other transitions here. And as soon as I save my file, I can immediately test them out on my devices. I should also mention that hot module replacement works with NativeScript apps built with Angular, which I happen to be using for this app. But it also works for apps built with Vue.js, and also NativeScript apps built with NativeScript Core. All can take advantage of this new functionality. The technique also works for not only JavaScript and TypeScript changes, it also works if you need to make updates to your markup. For example, if I get super excited about the title of my application here, as well as CSS changes as well. So if I want to flex my design skills here, go new background color for these labels, could use some blue, make labels a little bit bigger too. I can basically get a live preview and instantly see the changes that I'm making to my applications. And that's not even the coolest part. So suppose I'm now working on the details page of this app. So say I'm checking out the series of Die Hard movies here with that awesome page transition. And let's say I want to make some styling updates here. Now, if you're familiar with how NativeScript app development works today, it can be a little bit challenging to alter pages that you have to navigate to, or really any page that's dependent on your application's state. But with this new workflow in NativeScript 5 and hot module replacement, your state gets maintained because your app does not need to refresh. So I have the ability to change pages that I navigate to, for example, this details page here, and see those updates on the fly. So if I go into, for example, the CSS that makes up this page, and let's say I want to go with the very stylish black background and red text here, notice how I not only see these changes immediately, but I also don't have to navigate back and forth between the master and details page in order to see these updates on the fly. This is incredibly powerful, especially in large apps where it can be fairly tedious to make changes that are highly dependent on application state. The magic in terms of implementation is happening in two new hooks that we provide, on before LiveSync and on after LiveSync. For this app, I'm caching the app's current route and then reapplying that route after LiveSync as necessary. But depending on your needs and which framework you're using, what sort of architectures you are using, there's a number of things that you might want to do here in these hooks to simplify your development. Don't worry too much about the details of what's going on here. We'll be publishing sample code that you can use both for Angular, for Vue.js, and for NativeScript Core as well, along with the NativeScript 5.0 release. So stay tuned for that. Overall, hot module replacement gives you a ton of power in just how fast you can develop your applications. But there's one other feature that I'm super excited about in NativeScript 5, and that's the new preview-based workflow. In the example you've been watching, the app you see here is a natively built iOS app that I built on my Mac and deployed to an iOS simulator, which all happened under the hood when I ran the TNS run command from my terminal. This works great if you're on a Mac like I am, and if you have the system requirements in place for iOS development like I do as well. But oftentimes getting these system requirements in place can be a real pain, especially when you consider setting up for both iOS and Android development, and especially when you're just getting started. We've known this on the NativeScript team for a long time because you've told us this through surveys and chats and conversations that we've had with all of you. Our first answer to this was NativeScript Playground, a browser-based environment where you can code in the browser and deploy to iOS or Android devices using a QR code and an app you download from the iOS App Store or Google Play. Just so you have a visual of how this process works, I've got my iPhone that I'm mirroring over here, where I already have the NativeScript Playground app downloaded and installed. And if I open this app and scan the QR code from my browser, you'll see I can now see my app on my device, and if I make random change to this application, you can see how I also see the changes that I make right away. The cool thing about this workflow is you don't have to worry about your local setup to make any of this happen. You're coding in a browser and just running your app directly on your device. The limitation is, even though Playground is really powerful and really awesome, as developers, we really like to code in our own preferred environment, whether that's Visual Studio Code or Vim or whatever tool or IDE that you prefer to use. So with NativeScript 5, the NativeScript CLI has a new command, TNS Preview. The TNS Preview command is pretty simple actually. It just spits out a QR code that you can scan using the same app you use with NativeScript Playground. So what I'm going to do is this time get out my Android device where I've got the same NativeScript Playground app installed and scan the QR code. Give it a second or two to load up, and then my app appears on my device ready to go, exactly like working with NativeScript Playground. The difference being that I am now in a local environment, so I can open up my app in my text editor or my IDE of choice, which in my case is Visual Studio Code, and start coding my app from here. So for example, if I start making some changes to the counter that you see here, I see that update on my device, again, without having to have any of the native system requirements in place to make it happen. Now you will notice that my app did do a full refresh in order to display that change, which after we just spent a few minutes looking at hot module replacement in NativeScript, really feels like we've taken a step back. It feels very primitive just a few minutes later. But there's some good news, is I'm happy to announce that we also just very recently have hot module replacement working with the TNS preview command. All I have to do is go back to my terminal or command prompt, and I'm going to kill the existing TNS preview command, and I'm going to run it again, but this time with that exact same --HMR flag for hot module replacement. I'll instantly get another QR code, and when I go ahead and scan that, I'll again see my application, but this time if I make changes and I save this to set the counter back to 42, you can see just how fast I'm able to see the changes I'm making during development. Overall, hopefully you get a sense of just how powerful these new NativeScript 5 features are. You can develop locally without any iOS or Android setup, test on devices, and get a crazy fast development workflow because of hot module replacement. You can also easily test pages that require some sort of application state or routing to get to and get those same speed improvements. Before I let you go, remember there are two other features of NativeScript 5 that I want to very quickly highlight. The first of these is interactive app creation. Now you might know that the NativeScript team offers a large collection of templates for starting NativeScript apps. Templates you can find on the NativeScript Marketplace at market.nativescript.org and on the Templates tab. The problem is it's not always easy to know what templates are out there when you actually go to create your apps. So with NativeScript 5, you can look forward to a new interactive app creation experience. one that'll make it easy for you to find the template you need when you go to start your next app. And finally, if you, like me, have had, let's just say, some fun dealing with the new notches that appear on the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 10s, maybe you're familiar with some of the problems I'm showing in the screenshots here. If that's you, you'll be happy to know that we have a big refactoring in the NativeScript modules for NativeScript 5 to hopefully make your life of dealing with these notches just a little bit easier. And that's NativeScript 5, which I hope you're as excited about as I am. In terms of dates, you can expect a release candidate build of NativeScript 5 relatively soon, and a final release around the end of this month. If you're the type of person that likes trying the latest and greatest features as soon as they're available, if you head to the NativeScript documentation at docs.nativescript.org, you'll find an article called Running the Latest Code. You can just look for it in the Google search box that appears there. And it'll walk you through installing the latest NativeScript betas, which have all the features that I showed today if you want to test them out. Whether you try NativeScript 5 today or later this month, I think you'll find it significantly improves the way that you develop and build NativeScript apps. Thanks for joining me, and I'll go ahead and pass control of this webinar back over.
Awesome. Thank you, TJ, and thank you, Jen. I hope you've all seen how powerful the combination of NativeScript and Vue can be. And like you, I'm especially anxious to get my hands on NativeScript 5. So the question is now, where do we go from here? Well, aside from finding a way to get back to 1985 and investing all our cash in Microsoft and Apple, I have some great next steps for you all. First, visit NativeScript-Vue.org for a full set of docs, resources, and tutorials. If you want to get right at it, visit the NativeScript Playground at play.nativescript.org for an easy way to develop NativeScript apps in your browser. Hit up market.nativescript.org for Vue-compatible plugins and free sample apps. Finally, make sure you visit jsmobileconf.com to learn all about our conference in Boston coming up in a few weeks. We will all be there and would love to see you there. And that's it. Thank you very much for attending, and look for us in Back to the Future Part 3, which we promise will not have a Wild West theme. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.